May's Revenge, rewritten by Pretty Little Lass. Disclaimer, this is a rewrite of a story previously done on the show. Both the links to the original video, original story, and this rewrite will be in the description. People always have a bad habit of underestimating the females in Pokémon games. I felt the same way until I got my hands on a ROM file of Pokémon Emerald. I had only started to get into the Pokémon games quite recently. The first game I ever owned was Pokémon Colosseum. For Christmas, I had received a brand new iPhone 4. I had heard of the emulators for the Game Boy and the DS that could be downloaded. A few months after I had received the phone, I decided to play a game that my friend Joseph had recommended to me. The game was Pokémon Emerald, a game I had not yet had the privilege of playing. One day after school on a Friday, I had made the decision to test the new software. Everything seemed normal at first glance as the game booted up. The cheery music flowed from my phone as the screen displayed the title, Pokémon Emerald, in bold letters. I chose the male protagonist and named him Lucas. I picked Mudkip as my starter since I do love the little water Pokémon. The game went on normally until I had to battle May, the rival. Since this was my first time playing a Generation 3 game, I thought the female rival would be different since all rivals up until then were male. I was beating her in battle. Her Trico's health bar was red. May appeared on the screen with an angry and bitter expression after I had defeated her. I thought, okay, well this is definitely new. At the time I thought it was part of the game, maybe Generation 3 would show some emotions because it was a different game in the series. Also, I assumed technology was better in 2004, which is when the game was released. The game went on normally after that. I got my first gym badge, and May wanted to battle again. This time her Pokémon were around levels 15 to 20. My Pokémon were only around levels 16 to 18. My starter evolved, I had a Beautifly and a Talo as well. Towards the end of the battle, she was down to her last Pokémon. Her starter was her final Pokémon, yet it looked strangely enraged when she sent it out. I won and she had told me, "You will pay for this." By now I was a bit confused. Well, that's a bit odd. Maybe this was also a part of the game. It was probably Game Freak trying to appeal to an older demographic in some parts. I thought as she walked off screen. This time, I kept May in the front of my head, thinking about her the entire time I was playing. I was wondering why she was acting this way. I really didn't understand if this was the way a game was supposed to be, or if this was a hacked ROM file, yet I continued my journey. As I collected the gym badges, the game ran just fine until I got to Fortree City. Once I got near the gym, May appeared once again wanting a battle. I was thinking it would be good practice for the gym, so I agreed to battle her. My Pokémon were around level 30-36 by now. My Pokémon were all evolved, and I taught my starter Ice Beam. May first sent out a Haunter, a Pokémon she never had in the first place. I used my Ice Beam attack on it, and the Haunter fainted. When it fainted, May appeared on screen with a devilish look and sent out Ghastly. Once again, I had beat it with Swampert. Then finally she sent out her last Pokémon. This was not her starter Pokémon, it was a Gengar. This was not her normal team, or even close to it. She appeared on the screen, and all that showed up was Ellipsis, and it went back to the overworld. Just then, another text box appeared saying, "Something must change. You won't defeat me again." After that fiasco, she flew away. I looked up the game on the internet and saw my friend's game was different from what I saw online. As I was looking, I saw an odd beta version of Emerald and some similarities to the version I had. I then continued to play the game, thinking that I just had to finish this game and see if anything else was going to be a surprise. I beat the next couple of gyms, and I now had 7 badges. My team was made up of 4 Pokémon, all at the levels of 38 to 42. My team was comprised of level 42 Swampert, a level 40 Swellow, a level 38 Gardevoir, and a level 40 Camerupt. I was at the point of the game where I knew I had to go on to the legendary Pokémon quest. When I got to the underground place where Team Aqua was hiding, once again I saw May. This time there was no text box, the battle just started and her sprite was different from before. Her hair was down and looked matty with patched of red. Her clothing had changed to a white torn dress, and she wore a simple black cloak. The battle started and she sent out her Gengar at level 45. My Gardevoir beat it and she sent out another Pokémon. This time it was level 42 Duskull. Once again, her Pokémon was beat by my Gardevoir. At this point, she reappeared on screen and a text box appeared saying, "Change! We need change!" She sent out a haunter, and she knocked out my Gardevoir. After it fainted, I heard a sound coming from the Game Boy, something that sounded like a morphed cry of my Gardevoir. A text box appeared reading, "Gardevoir has died." I sent out a new Pokémon, but I was afraid the same thing might happen. I sent out my Swampert. She once again knocked out my Pokémon and the strange text appeared again. "Swampert has died." I grunted in frustration, sending out my Swellow. The same process repeated itself, with Swellow and Camerupt. After the battle, I didn't return to the overworld. Instead, I was at the black, whited out screen. It read in a bold font, "May has murdered Lucas." The text disappeared, showing May on the black screen with her overworld sprite changed to the one I had seen in battle. A text box appeared beneath her. "Change has come." I couldn't figure out what that meant. I still can't today. Finally, the screen faded and the end appeared on my phone screen with the credits. This game must have been the weirdest thing I had ever played. I went to my friend and told him about it. Being the caring friend he is, he agreed to play my ROM on the emulator. I allowed him to borrow my phone so he could do so. In 2 weeks, he came back to me with what he had concluded. He just told me that I should delete the file immediately as he hastily shoved the phone back to me. I haven't seen him in months after that last interaction. I didn't see him at graduation, prom, or any other event. Hell, I didn't even see him in class. I believe he transferred schools, but something told me that it was something far worse. That was May's Revenge. Final thoughts? A significant step up from the original, but unfortunately still bogged down by the problems of the original. I want to say right away that this story is just alright. I don't at all blame Pretty Little Lass for that, since she did quite a bit to take the story from being bad to just being okay. Really, its biggest weaknesses were that it was still based in May's Revenge. Plot points have been changed for the better, and everything flows much more naturally, but it's still alright at its core. That isn't to say that the rewrite was perfect. At one point near the end of the story, it's written that the sound came out of the protagonist's Game Boy, even though we've established that this is being played on a smartphone. This is the kind of thing I'm surprised was not caught in peer editing. All around, this was a much better version of May's Revenge, and I'd like to see what Pretty Little Lass would write when not tied down to the plot points of an already made story. That's it for this week's Creepypasta. Tune in again next week when we tackle yet another story made and sent in by the fans with Goodbye 3 Island. If you want to write your own story, help peer edit a story, or even just read the stories early, check out the description where you'll find a link to the Creepypasta section of my forum. You'll also find a link to the playlist of every Creepypasta reading I've done. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, sweet dreams.